Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Bringing Digital Learning into the History Classroom series. This week we have two amazing people from the History organization. We have Thomas and Jonathan Ketchell going to be talking to us about the History Online Timeline tool. So we're really excited for that. I'm just going to walk us through a couple of resources and introduce us to some of the elements of the digital learning series, since we have some viewers who are new to the series and haven't been with us. So welcome if you're new to the series, and if you've been with the series, we're glad to see you again. We're going to go ahead and do a screen share. Okay, so with our digital learning series, today is actually our 6th section, so we're actually very excited for that. Our past sessions have included organizations such as the JFK Library, such as the Digital Public Libraries of America, and we're really excited to kind of bring these opportunities to our classroom. We know that it's always challenging to know what resources are out there, and we want how to implement them within our classroom. So really, today's opportunity is really walking you through that. Our agenda for today, we have, so we're going to start, we're going to get an overview of the history tool. We're going to understand how to use history, how to apply history into our classroom, and then we're going to give you some time to work with the tool independently. We know that's one of the challenges of online learning, is really getting the opportunity to play with the tool, get comfortable, have the opportunity to ask questions, and have professionals there to advise you and to answer your questions as you stumble along. So really, this is an opportunity to learn, explore, create, and have some fun and collaborate with colleagues across the district in Boston Public Schools. And then at the end of your independent work, we're going to go ahead and we have an exit ticket. We really take your feedback meaningfully. We always want to try to improve our sessions and make them as usable for you in the classroom, so that's very important to us. And when we think about this digital learning series, we really want to make sure that we're thinking about building students' digital literacy. So we start with organizing and saving and organizing files, but really getting them all the way up to the area where they're creating in multiple modes of media. And when we think about these digital timelines, really thinking about how are we encouraging our students to curate information and create digitally and then share it to the general public. We want to make sure that we're giving our students the opportunity to know what it feels like to share globally, to share their information with colleagues, and to get feedback from their friends, from their classmates, from teachers and people in other schools. So really thinking about that when we're giving our students the opportunity. So it may be challenging at first, whether it's logistics of how am I getting the computers into my classroom? Do I have enough time with the computers? Or the logistics of how do I get my students online and accessing this tool? In the long run, all of the challenges will be well worth it in the end, because our students will leave with these digital literacies, with a strong digital literacies foundation. Okay. So with all that being said, and just so you know, you received an interactive agenda that will provide links to all of the different activities that we're doing. It also has all of the links for the history webinar that Thomas and Jonathan are going to walk us through. So if you have any questions, I am available online. So if you're in the Google Classroom, I'll answer questions that way. Or if you're in one of the Google Docs, you can go ahead and post questions and I will happily address them. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Thomas and Jonathan and let them get us started.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas Ketchell, and this is my brother, Jonathan.
Hi.
And thanks for the introduction, Natasha. So let me share my screen and kind of get going. So first, before we go in and show the tool, I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of describe the story behind history and why me and my brother are working on it full time. So really the idea for history, it's a free platform for teachers and students to create interactive timelines and projects. They can explore timelines and projects created by history, but also by our community of teachers from all over the world. And really our goal is to engage students, and that's really why we built history. So the idea behind history actually started out when I was living in Beijing, China. And I was confronted with this scene every single day. It was very polluted, it was smoggy, and it wasn't that pleasant to live in. And I was telling my friends and family back home of what it was like to actually live in Beijing, and this was taken a couple of years ago. But they didn't quite believe me. And being a historian and being very passionate about this, I decided to look back on history, and one event really stood out for me. So this was the London Great Smog of 1952. It was the single worst man-made air pollution disaster ever. 12,000 people died in the space of 5 days in London. And what we decided to do to sort of get people talking about air pollution was to create a fictional character, someone who woke up in 1952, had a smartphone and started tweeting. And he tweeted using one hashtag, Great Smog. So we built this whole story from primary sources, from personal anecdotes, from stories that were shared online. And we had some great collection of photographs which were shared. And we used it all on Twitter using this one hashtag, Great Smog. It really built up a story, and it built up quite the audience. So we had 422 tweets over 5 days, and we reached 1.5 million people on Twitter. So that was the original idea for History. And since then, we've really built a platform which is very inspired from social media. So you might see resemblances with parts of Facebook or parts of Twitter, but for an educational context and in the classroom. And so History now, from when we started in 2014, has grown phenomenally. So now we're at over 160,000 users in 136 countries. We get about 50,000 weekly active users, and we're extremely proud and happy that BPS have taken the initiative and provided History for all of you educators. So we're really happy with that collaboration because we are a Boston-based company. We've also won numerous awards which have helped a lot of our growth. So that's been through the American Association of School Librarians. EdSearch picked us as one of the core tools of the year, and Massachusetts Technology and Leadership Awards chose us as the EdTech Product of the Year. So that's really to give you some background as to History and why we started it. But now I'll let Jonathan actually dig deep into the tool and show you how it works. If we're speaking too fast, then Natasha, you could just tell us to slow it down. And if there's anything that's unclear, Jonathan will make sure to, and I will make sure to answer them. So to kickstart, Jonathan, you can take it away with the webinar timeline, which is actually linked in all the Google Docs, so you can access this timeline online. So Jonathan, take it away.
Hello everyone, so my name's Jonathan, I'm Thomas's brother and the editor-in-chief at History. I came pretty early on in the project. I'm a past teacher and also a writer, and I've actually truly been amazed by how versatility of this tool and how different ways you can use it. I've picked out some examples linked to more social studies content, but we also have users in mathematics, science, and teachers and students who have been using our platform. I'm first of all going to focus more on the historical aspect. I've chosen one example here of a photographic timeline of a soldier's life during the Civil War, which I imagine some of you study with your students. There's been this recent trend to open up archives. If you think about the Library of Congress and you think about the National Archives, they've actually slowly putting their resources out on different platforms, including Flickr, which some of you may know is a photo sharing website. All these photographs, which I found here, which you can see, all date back to the Civil War. As you can see, they're very static, the people in the photo, because photography at the time did not actually portray movement very well. If you look at this photo, for example, you could see the American flag, which is actually waving. But because of the movement, the camera couldn't sort of capture that image. So this is what I did. This is one example of using great resources which are out there, putting them on the timeline and making the students take interest in them. So this was basically me speaking of, this is one of the timelines which is part of the history content which you will have access to for social studies in middle school. And so what is this? I speak about using all these photographs to tell the story of the Civil War. What was it like for a soldier? What did he eat? What was his daily routines? What kind of jobs did he have? I'm just gonna show you also the different, take notice of the different kind of elements we have. We have green boxes, we have white ones, images, did you know facts. But you can also upload, for example, some audio files. Yeah, sorry for that. That was just an example of the Johnny Came Marching Home, which you can find on the internet, which was one of the songs they sang at the time to keep up morale. I'm just going to move on to a next example. This is the ancient Olympic Games. This is for a younger age group. It was more for like the end of elementary school. It was part of our unit on ancient Greece, which we did. I really take the opportunity when I do these timelines to actually move outside the strictly social studies scope. It's very important for me that it's cross-curricular, but also that it connects to the present. But before I get to that, I just wanted to show you this cool feature we have. If you notice some of these blue items we have here, but these are actually notes. So they're small definitions which you can add yourself to a timeline without needing for an external link. So here is one I did about Philip II, I have one about Alexander the Great. It's really good for explaining further, but also providing definitions. So I really took the opportunity here to make it fun because, yeah, not only is history fun, but also sports are fun too. So looking at the shape of the body of the athletes, do you think they are doing fast running or long distance running? In this case, fast running, yeah. The runners are taking large paces and swinging their arms to get the maximum speed. By the way, everything you can see here, you can create it too. This is just an example to show you different uses of the tool. This is very funny here, the pancreation, which was one of the ancestors of the wrestling, which we have today, in boxing. It was sort of a mixture of both. But at the time, you were permitted to do a lot of things, including attack the genital. And yeah, so I was talking about connecting to the present. Here I just started speaking about comparison between the modern and the ancient Olympics with a set of quiz questions. These quiz questions are really an opportunity for the student to look a bit further into the subject. Not so much as an analytical tool, but more as a different way to approach the content. Just going to move on here. This person here is actually Thomas and I's grandfather. Unfortunately, we never knew him. This was his photo taken when he was 18 in 1916. So he was drafted into and went to the First World War. And when was it? It must have been in summer 2015. I was at my parents' home and I was going through my old things, and I stumbled across a chest full of old papers and documents, and I looked deeper into it, and I realized it was my grandfather's old affairs, which our father had kept. And so I started to see these old photographs, including this one. And the more I dug into it, and I went to ask my father, I said, yeah, I knew he had been at the war, but I didn't know what happened. So I asked him, and he said, my father our grandfather never actually spoke to our father about the story, what happened because of the horror. So he never knew exactly. He had an idea of maybe him being injured, but he wasn't sure. So I actually dug through everything. It was a real archivist kind of job. But I must admit, it was one of the most relevant things I've done in my adult life as I sort of pieced together his story. And I made two timelines out of it, actually, divided it into two parts. So he joined the war in 1916. So I took this opportunity to speak of what the situation was on the Western Front at the time. And he was called up upon in 1916. I think I have his certificate here. This was the National Registration Act. So this is one of the papers which I stumbled upon, and then I scanned later, and then I put onto this timeline. So this was the national registration, which the whole UK government at the time did to actually figure out how many men they had at their disposal. Because like many wars, they thought the war was going to end very quickly, but it ended up dragging on and dragging on. And so he joined in 1916, and I followed everything. I scanned his whole story. It was very interesting also because at the same time I realized that my great uncle, Jack, which you can see on this photo, So Jack, he actually joined the war. He was older than our brother, so he was there since 1914. You can see him here in this picture here, doing a very British thing, drinking tea. Traditions don't always change that much. But yeah, so their lives were actually intertwined. And as I was going through the whole documents, I realized that they actually met at one bit, and it was a whole, you can really go through the story if you want. It's a really fascinating story. Also show you that there are fantastic archives out there. These are it's a video which I found on YouTube of fresh recruits which were training during the war. This actually doesn't have any sound, that's why you can't hear anything. But there's some fantastic archives out there, and I think history is the perfect tool to really showcase that, certainly from a historical perspective. Now I'm just going to move on to, because history works for history, obviously, but it also works for geography.
Yeah, and just to emphasize that personal history piece, what we've noticed from schools across the country in the US is that teachers are getting their students to create their own personal history projects. And a lot of teachers have been inspired from what we did with the story of our grandfather and getting the kids to really explore their heritage and their story. And it really is a very easy tool for teachers to get their students on board, look up their family history, and then create a timeline about it, which they then present to their parents and their classmates. And it makes for fascinating reading, actually. So yeah, go continue, Jonathan.
No, that's a good point, especially in the USA, where local history is very strong. It's a good point. That's true. Yeah, this is actually a timeline we did also about the geography of United Arab Emirates. It was at the time Thomas went to do a presentation over there, so we thought we might as well speak a bit of this country, which not many people know much about, apart from the Dubai, the Tower. But, so yes, we also realized how our timeline tool works very well for this kind of project. And it also makes me realize that maybe now's the moment to say that our timeline tool is not so much a timeline tool, but maybe more of a presentation tool. A new good way to present content and show it to your student or to your students or to your teacher. I wanted to highlight here one of the quiz questions we have, which is the drag and drop one. Here you can see I have a quiz question about the deserts throughout the world. So match the facts to the deserts. So what do? The Atacama Desert. Is it the largest polar desert, non-polar desert, the driest desert, or the coldest desert? If I get it wrong, no. Then I put it here to the correct. Sahara Desert. Is it the coldest? Nope, it's the largest non-polar desert. And the coldest desert is the McMurdo Dry Valleys in Antarctica. This is one of the cool features we have. Again, it's all in the aim of increasing engagement. I also realized when I was doing how easy it was to use these kind of speak of things outside, again, of the scope and be cross-curricular. Took this opportunity to speak a lot of biology and fauna and flora, including the sound the fruit bat can make. Here we have, an example of a civics project. I chose something very contemporary, as we are in election kind of season in the USA. I like this timeline in particular because it's actually an incentive for the student to actually think about the whole process. It's not just a simple presentation of facts, but this is actually a teacher timeline, so it's not created by us and shared with the community. So the teacher here took a variety of resources and shared them with his students. As you can see here, using all these great resources which you can find on YouTube and all kinds of websites, all in the goal to increase engagement and to make students think. You have a particular question here, which is a forum question. This is actually an incentive to begin a discussion, because what you cannot see on this kind of timeline at the moment, because it's the teacher view, the student view enables you to comment on each post. And the forum question, kind of like you have on Facebook. And the forum question in this respect is really an incentive to start class discussions. When we were piloting history at the start, we realized how powerful this could be. How all of a sudden, students who were very shy and very quiet actually had a voice and were daring to say what they wanted to say. And it was also very interesting to see how students were actually bouncing off each other, and the teacher was just sort of mentoring it from a distance, but wasn't actually involving, and the students were learning by themselves or by communicating with themselves. So I'm going to move on. Yes, what I want to highlight now is the copy the timeline feature. This is we think one of the cornerstones of our tool, because it enables you to do an assignment on history. If you see here, under the banner, you have this copy the timeline here. By clicking on this, students will have the same timeline, and then they can fill it up, review it, and submit it back to you. So it effectively turns this timeline tool into an assessment tool, an assignment tool. Here's an example here we created of a 10-minute task. So the goal here was this is part of another timeline, but the goal here is to put all these events under either the Paleolithic or the Neolithic age. I added extra complexity by asking the students to fill in the question mark, so that means they have to go on the internet, find the correct image, and upload it. So really, it really is the perfect template kind of approach to a timeline. And I wanted to finish by presenting you some student projects, because it's great to consume information, but it's a lot better if you actually create, and that is one of the cornerstones. We really try to make it as simple as possible so that even a 5 to 6 year old can start using history. I took an example here of Bas Reeves, who you probably know, and just to show you also how I thought this is a student made by maybe, I think it was 8 or 9 years old. Just to show you how this kind of timeline is the perfect blend of the digital and the physical. As you can see here, the student wrote out what happened to Base during his whole life, but he also matched it to his Lego creations, which he took photos of and uploaded to our file. It's a pretty entertaining read. I suggest you go through it whenever you have time. Again, I've really been amazed at the creativity, not only of the teachers, but I must say especially of the students, who always find original ways to use our tool.
Yeah, so I think this is a good segue to actually show you the timeline tool and how to get signed up, and show you how simple it is. You know, this timeline is public, so you can go in there and look at the examples some more, and really to highlight the creativity of students and teachers, and just show you how simple it is to create. But we'll also look more at our platform too. So first thing I'll do is, you can follow, if you're following it online, you can do the same steps too. So type into the search bar www.hstry.co. A lot of teachers ask us why we chose that name, which I didn't actually explain at the start. So we went with that name at first because we realized that a lot of kids were actually weren't writing the full word history, and this was sort of tech speak for writing history. So we wanted to really appeal to them. I know some teachers have fallen in love with it, and other teachers aren't big fans of it, but we're really following with what the students like about it. So on the website, you can see we have a timeline of the month, which is Magellan's Great Expedition. And this was a featured timeline. We also have some more featured timelines here, which you can just view and access and share. What we'll show now is actually, if you click on the top right of the header, there is a sign up function. And so we're very happy that BPS is actually a Google Classroom enabled district, and we have Google sign on. So if you just click on that button, you can immediately sign up with your Gmail. What we are offering as well over the next 6 months is more integration with Google Classroom. So you will be able to post history assignments directly to Google Classroom. That's going to be a big feature which will help you with the class management. So I'm just going to log into a demo account just to show you how history works. So Once you've signed up, you will be given, you'll be headed onto the history dashboard where there is my classes and my timelines. There is a teach section, explore, help, you got a profile, and you can log out too. On the bottom right is a little chat box. You can press that anytime and you'll see the history team and you can start a new conversation. So here you'll see there's actually me and Jonathan have been active in the last hour on there. So you can send us a message, hi, and that will immediately go to me and Jonathan, and then we will respond within, usually within 10 to 20 minutes. So you can ask us a question anytime. It's only enabled for teachers, not for students, so feel free to ask us any questions if you need to get started. So to create a class is actually very simple. You press add a class, you put your name, you choose your subject and the grade. So we'll say it's history, actually we'll say it's class 5A, subject history, and the grade 5th grade. You click create class, and here you have a tour that will explain to you every single step, but you also get given a class code. You can then share this 5-digit code with your students and they can immediately register with their Google accounts. So it's all single sign-on, it's very easy to get started. But really what we want to show you now is actually how the timeline tool works and how simple it is. So all you need to do is on the My Timeline section is just click that box, which is create a timeline to get started. So you will get another tour which explains to you how the timeline tour works. I'm just going to skip that as I'll just show you how the timeline tour works. And as you can see from the timelines that Jonathan showed, it's sort of an empty banner. It's an empty template for you to start creating. The best thing about history is that it works a bit like Google Docs. So every action that you undertake on the timeline is automatically saved. So to get started, you can add a nice cover picture. So you click on add banner. You can upload directly from the internet. So you can paste in a URL, which is an image format, and it will upload automatically, or you can choose from the computer. So I've saved a few images that I'll just upload to BPS timeline. I'm going to do my timeline on none other than Paul Revere. So as you see, the banner is immediately uploaded. I have a section here on the bottom right to add image credits. So this is a functionality that many teachers requested. So it's for students to credit their sources. So we really try and push for them to explore the web, but also use the web ethically. We also have timelines and handbooks that explain that whole process. So we'll share a few of the links after this session. And I want to start creating, so I can set the title of my timeline. So I'm going to put Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. And like I said, again, every action you take is saved automatically. So there is no save button. You have the possibility of putting in an introduction. So introduction to the timeline. We have a rich text editor. So that means that you can add in bold or italics. You can underline certain words too. You could create bullet points, lists. You can add in links. So you can add in URLs. So it's a great way to, if you just want to regroup a lot of resources for your students and you don't want them to sort of get lost, just put them through a timeline, share them with your students, and they can easily follow an event. It's also, you can also add in dictionary. As Jonathan showed, there's a sort of function of notes where you can add it for extra learning for your students. So if we want to start creating, we can split the timeline up with headings. It's optional, so if you don't touch it, it's okay too. And then to add a new item, you just click on the plus button. And there you are given the options of adding text, images, videos, only YouTube for now. We will be integrating more with Google Drive, audio files, did you knows, quiz questions which are multiple choice, drag and drop, a forum, and different headings. So there is a lot of functionalities you can do on history. We always recommend to start slowly and just start creating to get used to it. So I'm just going to add some images to show you how simple it is to create something that looks great within the matter of a few seconds. So I'm just uploaded a colonial map of Boston. Again, I'm prompted to add the image credits, and I can add a description. So I'm going to just say it's the colonial map of Boston. And I can also click on the image and it will enlarge. So this was great on tablets because the kids could zoom in. And it's also just a terrific map. And we're actually very big fans of geography and maps at History. So it's great to be able to see our tool that can be used this way. So if I want to keep adding more images, it's very simple again, very smooth. And if I want to add a did you know as well, let me add one in. You can also add images to did you know, or it's optional as well. So if you don't add an image, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to add a picture of the Boston Massacre. And so the best thing about what I'm showing you right now is that students can do exactly what we're doing, and you can monitor all of your students' work. So it's all kept private between you and your students. Every timeline that you create is actually private unless you wish to share it with the community. So it's purely optional. You can keep everything private. And if you do share student work, none of their names, none of their data is published. So we take a lot of steps to keep students' data private and secure. And so we take a lot of time with that. So you can add many items as you want. You can also add in a conclusion. So this is a great place to actually create a bibliography for your students. You can also delete items. You can also move items around. So you can just click these little 4 arrows and then move it. And there's my picture of Paul Revere that's moved to the top. I'm going to move my map down actually. And there it is. It's below the Boston Massacre picture. When you're happy with a timeline, you can click View It. Then it tells me there's some errors on the timeline. Scroll down, correct them, and click on View. So I'm looking, oh, I see there's, I need to add some text to the Did You Know? So let me add the Boston Massacre. And I'll go back and click View. And there you go, it's published. So I can then share this timeline with my students. So that class we just created, I'll click on it. I can also share the timeline with the community. So like we said, you can easily share it and make it public. So then you can share the URL, or you can just keep it private. And the best thing about, even if you've published it, you can actually edit the timeline at any time. But at first, you can also just make a copy of a timeline. So if you make a copy, you can also have your students do exactly the same. Also, a functionality that BPS, all you teachers at BPS will have is the ability to print the timelines. So you can save every timeline to PDF and upload to Google Drive, or you can print them out and put them up in your classroom. That's how some of the teachers have been doing it. And it's very, very easy to print. You click on the button and then you get a version which is automated and saved. So that's a great functionality. And you have access to all of that. So again, you can edit the timeline as you want. If you're not happy with anything, delete it. It's all automatically saved. And if you want to publish it again, you just click that button. I think this will be a good opportunity to show you the explore functionality. So Jonathan, maybe you want to explain how our community works and all of the rich content that you have access to and can use with your students.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to start with the community, actually. This is all content that's created either by teachers or by students. You can access it at any time. We have a search bar you can use. Search for your resources. If you're looking for something, you're a bit running out of teaching ideas or something maybe you can use with your classes, just type in Civil War, you'll have a lot of results. Excitingly, we have 2 partners here, Facing History and ourselves, and Global Oneness. They are actually, Global Oneness have just put their timelines up online. They are maybe more for an older crowds, for maybe high school students, I would say. And Facing History ourselves, it's also, they have this more of a social message, focused more on combating racism and things like that. So we're very proud to have them on board. I'm just going to focus on our history timelines. We have lots of bundles, which you, as part of History Premium, actually have access to, and you can use them and modify them as much as you want. We have timelines on the Age of Exploration, more linked to ancient civilizations and world history. But we also focus on the American US history, including the American Civil War, the American Revolution, but also colonial America. We really try to make these timelines interesting and cross-curricular. We also do, actually, it's a new way of presenting information, but it's also a new way of presenting some content. So we've taken this opportunity to speak of maybe lesser spoken of history, including the role of women, and how the indigenous peoples of America were treated, and African American history. So we really take this opportunity to speak of what's less spoken of, including, as you can see here, in the American Revolution, Dorcas Richardson's bravery. It's a very interesting story. I suggest you check it out. We've got a lot of graphic organizers and templates which you can use. It's also very useful if you want to just do a quick activity with your students. And all these, of course, as I said, which really can be modified by you. Importantly, you will realize after, we have 2 history handbooks. One of them is for teachers, so these is just how to use the comments on history, ideas for using history in the classroom, highlighting a copy of the timeline feature. We also have some for students. We sometimes wrongly assume that students know how to use technology because they're born with it. We'd actually be surprised how they actually do need to learn about how to search an image on the web, how to actually do a correct search, because there are different skills and techniques which they really need to learn. So I really suggest you check those out when you take your time and whenever you have anything. Of course, which I forgot to mention, we also have lesson plans attached to each of our content. I'll just take an example here. This is actually our recent Age of Exploration timeline. And I think, yeah, so this was one we did about, Thomas was speaking about maps. We've actually created a timeline based on the history of maps up to the Age of Exploration. It's very interesting, you should check it out. As we actually tie them all to Common Core standards. So this includes usually the aims, the warm-up activities, if you wish to use it with your students, but also the follow-up. We really try also to make these follow-up activities as much digital as it can be physical, because we believe in both in teaching, and also the sources, if you want to check that out.
So just to highlight that is, you will have access to all of this content. What we'll do is that we'll coordinate with Natasha to make sure that all of your accounts are upgraded to premium. And in the explore section, there is really great units for you to play around with, to look if the content is good for your classroom. And what I would say as well is that if there are any timelines that you think could be improved or changed, all you need to do is simply, you can either share the timeline directly with your students, or you make a copy of it for your accounts and yourselves. And when you make a copy of a timeline, it then becomes editable, so you can adapt it for different learners and different learning levels. So that is a fairly comprehensive explanation of history and the tool. I realize we've given you a lot of information in the last half an hour. So I think now is a great opportunity and time for you all to sort of participate in creating your own activities and your own timelines. So I think what would be good now is to actually switch it back to Natasha and sort of get all the teachers to sort of create these activities themselves. And just to let you know that we'll be here for the next hour to answer questions, but we're just really looking forward to all of you just playing around with the tool. So thanks a lot for listening, and I hope we didn't talk too much.
No, I don't think there's ever such thing as talking too much in a webinar. I think that's the point, just trying to get the experience. And I think really sitting back and experiencing the webinar, I'm extremely excited, especially thinking about the history tool as more than just a timeline, but really as a way to present information, which I think was amazing. And really actually hearing Thomas and Jonathan talk, it made me think about how this point in the series, for those of you who have been participating this entire series, was actually a great place for this history timeline session, because we've had the Digital Public Library of America, the Library of Congress, we've had JFK Library, we've had all these different organizations that provide a wealth of online resources, online images, online documents, that you can then take your students to their databases and have them drag and drop, copy links, those kind of basic tools and skills that we've been learning through this entire series. We can't assume that our students know how to do that, and we can't assume that as teachers we know how to do that, because those are all digital literacy skills that we've been working on. So I think that's it. Sequentially, this is very exciting. Think about, you can go back now and you can drag information. Think about the last week, those of you who were with us created lists of resources on Digital Public Libraries of America. Take the resources from that list, take the images that you curated, and now you have a tool that you can drop them into and share and present into your classrooms. So I think that's great to hear. I think those of you who are going to continue in the series, it will be also very exciting, because our next presentation will be the Leventhal Map Center. So the geography maps, gentlemen, if you have not explored them yet, they're amazing. The Leventhal Map Center in Boston, out of the Copley Library. So we'll be exploring some digital resources there that we could then bring back and drop into these timelines as well. So I'm going to now kind of walk you through the last few assignments that you're going to be doing, the activities and assignments that you're going to be doing. One of the, I laugh because one of the things that we've talked about in preparing this webinar is, with online learning, is really giving you the opportunity to actually go and explore and have the support that you need to do that. So that's part of the reason why, rather than talking at you for 2 hours straight, we're wrapping it up, walk you through the different activities and really allow you to go ahead and explore on your own. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share now and just kind of explain the final activities that we're going to be going through. And there we go. Okay, so those of you who have been part of the series, of the Digital Learning and History Classroom series, all of these assignments are posted in the Google Classroom. If you have any questions, I'm online with the Google Classroom thread, or Jonathan and Thomas are online in the different Google Docs. General audience, you're just going to work through that interactive agenda, and that interactive agenda has links to all of the Google documents that you're going to need. And really, the Google documents are really just our location to share our URLs for our timelines. And let me walk you through those assignments now. So we're going to be, I'm going to switch screens. This is the joy of screen sharing. I can switch and share a different screen. Here we go. Okay, so so this is what your interactive agenda looks like, and part of the reason it's an interactive agenda is because you can click on everything that's blue, it's live. So if you go down, we have a Google Doc for creating and sharing a timeline. This is where we're really giving you the time to go and work and try to make a timeline. We're asking for at least 5 different elements. Challenge yourself, try something new, drag and drop some images, create some questions, really getting to play around with this. You can use any topic you'd like. It could be something you can bring back to the classroom. It could be just a topic that you want to do for fun. And then after that, there's a Padlet where you're going to post just some reflection about how you describe history to a colleague, really challenging yourself to, if you had one sentence to describe it to a colleague, how would you describe it? And then how would you use history in the classroom? So thinking about, what do you want your students to create timelines on? What do you as a teacher want to create timelines on? How do you think you might want to model for your students? Do a joint timeline, things like that. And so that you're going to post here. And when you're posting, just a name on top so then I can make sure to give you credit in the assignment section. And finally, as Jonathan had mentioned earlier, the different handbooks. So there's a great collection of handbooks, and all of the handbooks are linked here. And what we're asking you to do is pick one handbook that you want to explore a little bit deeper, and then share 1 or 2 takeaways from that handbook. Thinking about this learning, one of the joys of online learning is being able to collaborate, being able to share your ideas and share your thinking. So this Google Doc is just a simple table. And for those of you who are new again to the series, I love Google Docs and I love tables, and I love having the opportunity for everyone to be able to drop their ideas in and really get an idea of what other people are thinking, what other people are sharing. So just a simple table in a Google Doc really allows us to do that. So if you have any questions, you're just going to go ahead. Okay, if you go insert, and I have to type something first or highlight something. So say I have a question about colleagues. Go insert, comment, and then you can type your question right on the side. Right? So if you have any questions, please feel free to do that. Also, please take advantage of the chat feature within the history website that Jonathan and Thomas had showed us earlier, because they're online. So if you have any logistical questions, any questions on how to, if you're having trouble logging in, if you're having, I know one person was having a little bit of trouble getting past one of the checkpoints. So if you're having any trouble logistically, feel free to use that chat box as a space to post questions. But otherwise, we're here to support you in this learning. And I'd really, and I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint for one moment. And so one of the elements that we're just really want to make sure is taking advantage of reconnecting with us. So if you have any questions, all of you have my email address. Twitter is a great way to have any questions. We're here through Google Classroom. We're here through the Google Docs. Really, we're here to support you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. The likelihood is if you have the question, there are probably about 3 or 4 other people who have the same exact question. So as you're going through, post any questions if you're having trouble, but really enjoy, have fun, explore, take the time to learn and create. And I just want to take a moment to thank Jonathan and Thomas, who are actually broadcasting in from Chile, really thanking them for joining us and doing a wonderful presentation. And we'll give them a moment to say bye to us, and then you guys are off to have some fun and to do some learning.
Hi, yeah, so yeah, Thomas actually had to take a call, but yes, it's just me. But yeah, no, so thank you very much. You know, we're small but really dynamic, and we really believe in what we do. So, and what we're really excited about is when teachers actually share resources together and work off each other. One day we would like history to be, we actually use in many, many countries. It's only in English for the moment. We'd like to translate it into different languages, and we'd love, you know, for someone in India and someone in Great Britain to work on one timeline about colonization of India. I mean, it would be fantastic. So yeah, get creating, and if you need anything, we're there on the chat, or just email us. So thanks again, Natasha, and yeah, maybe we'll do this again sometime soon. Thanks.
Excellent. So that's our cue. Go ahead and have some fun, explore, create, and we look forward to seeing your timelines, and we're here for support. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Thomas. Bye, Jonathan.
Bye.